Hello, pardon the hat back to front. I'm trying to manage my physical health and mental health, and what's happening is I feel like energy's being pulling my head this way and energy's pulling my head that way, or more accurately pain in the form of energy. I won't go into too much detail, but it's like my head's wobbling all over the place, and just having something fixed on top somehow alleviates that a little bit. But yeah, for some reason I'm not too comfortable wearing it this way around, and hence back to front. But yes, I'm pulling myself back from a relentless beating from my mental health and physical pain from the moment I woke up, and I'm in a position where I can think about making a live stream to speak, to clear the emotions and focus the mind. And this subject matter popped into mind, and I thought it would be a good topic to discuss whilst I'm doing my therapy regime. So in fact, one second, I'll be back. So yeah, happy solstice everybody. It's lovely. Well, it's not lovely, I'm not going to be sarcastic. It's very grey and overcast here in London, and you'd want sunshine on a solstice. Apparently the Mayan shaman from the workshop I attended in Glastonbury over 10 years ago now, we were doing a ceremony, and the ceremony wouldn't begin on solstice until the sun appeared. So I don't know if that means technically the solstice hasn't begun until the sun shows itself, but I wasn't up at 4 o'clock, which probably means I missed it. Yeah, 10 years today from my mum passing, and you know, I'm no bad feelings there. She's gone, and I didn't really want to talk about it in the first instance, because what I've learnt over my mental health, what my mental health has taught me, is that it's not something to dwell upon, bereavement, any more than is absolutely needed. So it was something I was happy to leave off, but at the same time we're all human beings, and bereavement, if we're honest with ourselves, still hurts. And that is important to the other two topics, depression and mental health, the weird link between them, which I was hoping to discuss. But in the first instance, let me paint a context with regards to my circumstance, because, well, I'll leave it up to you to figure out how egotistical I am, because I lost the plot when I put my hat on back to front and pressed live stream, because I couldn't have ever imagined the world that this would happen in, but hey, it's happening. And the weird scenario is so within my mental health, I've taken the constant approach that it's for my evolution as a spiritual being within a human frame, within a human body, within a human sorry, as you can tell, I'm just getting over the the slight emotional distraction of the morning, and as I regulate my breathing and focus and through speaking, it's takes me a few seconds sometimes to just compose myself. So yes, over the course of my mental health, that's the approach I've had. What is spirituality? What is life trying to tell me? What is my uncle? What is my father, who I believe governed the proceedings of my mental health? What do they want of me? What are they asking of me? What can I do to make my circumstance better? What can I do to rectify this situation? Now, my mental health started 1 week before. She was a good friend at the time. I didn't know her for too long, but she was a very close friend at the time. That's how I consider her, and that's Julia Cantelé. Many of my friends from Brighton would have at least been aware of her, I guess. She was associated with Manor after I parted, and I knew her back in London thereafter with Kyle, my other friend, and essentially, yeah, we got quite close for a few months, and 1 week before she passed away, my mental health started. So I don't know if that's me just being psychic on another level and tuning in to life to such an extent that I knew she was going to pass away, and that instigated the mental health trauma, so to speak, within me 1 week before. Or it is actually spirituality, it is actually external consciousnesses, which I believe guiding me, teaching me, making me grow as a spiritual being, because, well, my body's in decline. And that's what I believe. But I believe it has purpose, because as much as I could come away, the hard truth is, as much as I could come away from Julia's passing and get lost within my mental health, like, without too much problem. Well, there was lots of problems, but for the sake of the emotional torment of losing a close friend, my mental health more than covered that. And I think within about 6 months, a year, I'd realised reality, the relationship we had between us, that I'd not known her long, and I was able to put it to bed. So it's a really bad saying, isn't it? I was able to leave it within myself, and not have to feel like I've got any emotional baggage there, which I probably do if it was ever raised. If I was to have a dream of her one day and remember her, the relationship we had, I'm sure it would hurt, but on the whole, I know within myself the circumstance, and it's nothing to hold to. 6 months after that, though, I lost my mum, and the reality of the situation is, at the time, I couldn't admit it. There was no ability to live with that comprehension from the relationship that we had between us, and I couldn't. I knew I was within my mental health, and I knew I was experiencing this strange world, and I could look at the situation that my mum had passed at a distance, and I knew it was unbearable if I was able to experience it in the first instance. And I think it was like that 3-4 years later still. But where it is now, 10 years later, to the day, with everything else I've experienced in life, and with the simplicity of the learning, the teaching, that it's not something to hold to. Because on an emotional level, on a real level, I haven't clicked yet. It hasn't clicked in me that my mum's dead. I mean, I can speak about it openly, honestly, so it must be more of an emotional level. It hasn't hit home. But on a mental level, I know where I'm at with it. So I'm preparing myself that one day, well, the irony is, I remember when I moved to Brighton, it was about 10 years since my grandmother passed. And my mum, I was speaking to my mum on the phone one day, and she said to me, it's only now with you leaving for Brighton that my mum, have realised that my grandmother's passed, that it's really hit home. And I'm sort of expecting the same thing. So, you know, my mum didn't have a mental health disorder, so this is a natural sort of thing to happen, in a way. And I'm preparing myself as best as possible, and this perspective, I'm hoping the best solution would be a case of, you know, it hits home, I have a really good cry, you know, really good release, and then get on. But I'm also aware of how I felt before and how, well, vulnerable I am to life and my mental health at present. So it really could go the other way. I could really fall into depression. I don't want that. Again, that's something my mental health has taught me, spirituality has taught me to avoid at all costs. But it's also taught me to be honest and natural as a means to progression, because one minute. Just get a peppermint oil capsule. Yeah, so it's taught me to be natural as a means to my own personal ability to heal and overcome. So what that means is, like, if you're constantly lying to yourself about how bad something is, you're never really going to be able to get over it, because there's always going to be a little bit you're not able to stomach, so you never really clear it. But if you're honest with yourself in the first instance, even if it's really bad and really painful and goes against all the teachings you've ever learned, and you just sit with it, you're able to sit with it for 5 minutes, an hour, 2 hours a day, 2 days, or whatever is needed for you to just, like, breathe in that horribleness, you can then begin to build from there. You can begin to say, right, this is it. It's not any worse than this. This is as bad as it gets in terms of this thing. In my case, my mum's passing. And once you're there with it, it's like, this is life, this is real, this is where it's at, and I need to put in place a plan to get beyond this. I know I've got to leave it behind, I know it's not appropriate. Let's move forward. So that's my mindset, that's where I'm at with all of this. I don't fear it. I want it to come, I want to get it over with. I don't want to have this thing hanging over me any longer. But then again, I can't, as I said, see the full extent of how it's going to hit me. But that's it, you know, that's what I wanted to discuss. It's like mental health and depression. I suppose when it comes to bereavement, that's like the ultimate depression, because you can have all your possessions go up in flames, you can have all the hardships of the world happen to yourself. When bereavement happens, it's not only for yourself, because you've lost the ultimate possession, a human being. There's no value in this world to a human being. I mean, people will try and do it with slavery and stuff, but there's no value that should ever be placed above a human life, is there? That's what my spirituality has taught me, and that's obvious to see if you're a human. So that's the ultimate thing to lose, that's the ultimate pain. And it's also a case of, well, not only has this happened to me, but it's happened to them, you know. They've lost, I won't call it a beautiful thing from where I'm at present, but they've lost this experience of what could be paradise. You know, we're incarnate here on earth, and at present I'm living a hell. But I'm fully aware that I look out the window now and I know that way is like a good few miles of shit and sickness before you come to anything that resembles nature and life. But even within the sickness and the shit, there's a potential to live, you know. As long as you're fighting for life all the time. The sickness and shit are more than bearable because you're doing good. You're like on the. You're positive. You're a benefit to humanity, and that's where we want to be, isn't it? But obviously we can get lost within the sickness and shit, and sometimes it's, we just want peace. So I can fully understand why people die. But the connection between the two is it's like, the possibility is I've almost been given my mental health disorder. As I said, it was a week before my friend passed away. So I don't fall into that unbearable dwelling place of bereavement. Because until I'm able to deal with it on all levels. Then again, really, who's done the work in this world to be able to really stomach it on an emotional level? Because if you're true emotionally, it's going to hurt. If you're too much in your head, you're not really emotional. And you're not honest with yourself. So on some level, we're always going to have this spiritual external consciousness guiding us, because it hurts in the first instance, but you know what I'm getting at is what I'm trying to say. I've been given my mental health disorder to learn and grow over bereavement, but it's also to really connect with it on an emotional level as to how much it hurts. And if I look back over my life, the way I was so erratic and so activated by my mental health over the past 10 years, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, but this is my mental health. I'm annoyed, I'm aggravated, I'm all of these things because of my mental health. I can't even think about the bereavement. And this is it. This is where I'm trying to say that, one, it could just be my own it could be my own subconscious that's been hot-wired this way, that whenever emotional pain comes up, it displays as a mental health problem. Because looking back over my mental health, that's what sort of happens. It's like the past 6 months have been 10 years since Julia died, and a build-up since 10 years from my mum dying. And it's arguable the past 6 months have been the hardest of my life. Well, except for one summer. And what I'm trying to say is it a case of an external consciousness governing the course of my life all the way to instigate within me torment and trouble around these times, so it distracts me entirely? Is it a case of my subconscious doing it automatically as a result of being hot-wired by an external consciousness or by my own trauma? So that when I would otherwise experience emotional pain, it shows as mental health conflict. And it, as I said, it really does. If I look back over a lot of my mental health, it does really look that way. That when I would have experienced emotional pain, I get hit with my mental health. But it's annoying looking back at it from my perspective. I'm like, nah, man, 100% it's my mental health, because from the place that I reference myself at as the experiencer of my life, I'm given the problem of mental health first. And that's what I've eaten, that's what I've lived. But I realised this sort of thing about a year, 2 years ago, about this possibility of what I'm saying about my mental health being there to disguise emotional pain. And I started to try to live in accordance with how I should be, or what I would expect of myself as a human being, and life really became a lot easier. It fell into alignment. And I used my physical body as the reference for that. So it's like with my mental health and with the anxiety and with the stress, you sort of go out of your body, you know? It's like you lose touch with your physical body. So I just focused on, where is my body at? Is it stressed? Yeah, it must be stressed with how I'm living. What should I do to remedy this? Right, I've got something that keeps niggling me with my left leg. There's no pain, but I'm looking at the circumstance and it's moving in weird angles, like I should be in effing agony. So let's remedy that sort of thing. You know, you remedy what makes sense to the life that you grew up with. And my body fell into check, you know, it fell into place. And for the first time, life was livable in a long time. And life was still really, really hard, like really hard. I was getting up every day, dealing with the pressures, dealing with the pains. And I could say I was almost alive for the first time in a long time. But, you know, the past year and a half, my body's really, it fell apart altogether as a result of external stresses. And where it is now, I'm sort of at a loss how to put it in check myself. I still try and do things on every day, like this therapy machine I'm using at the moment to fix my neck, which has been a cause of the problems of late. As I said, you know, just listen to your body. It's like my neck's been cracking this way, that way. It's like, it feels light, it feels heavy, it feels this, it feels that. Something's wrong with my neck, so I address my neck. But I'm fighting a losing battle there. And that's as much as I really need to share of my own life to highlight this problem. Well, I say it's a problem, but it is a problem to my own ignorance. But as I said, for a good 4 or 5 years, I couldn't acknowledge my mother's death. So if it turns around and it really hits home, like in the next few days, weeks, months, year, however long, that, oh yeah, no, my mum's gone. I want to remember this moment because this is the one time I voiced it. And that was the other reason to make this video. As I said, I wasn't really bothered about it being 10 years through what I've learned. But as a means of personal healing from school time when I was bullied, this is how I used to heal my own emotions. Just like, as long as I can speak about it, I'm not really attached to any emotional tone that comes across. I'm not really bothered, man. I just carry on, innit? So what's the problem? There's no real problem. And that's been my philosophy. That's been my philosophy to emotional healing. Just speak about it until you're able to speak about it. When you first start speaking about something that's traumatic, an event that's happened to you, there's going to be emotions there, but try and hold it in your voice, hold as an appropriate tone to yourself, not to yourself, to the external circumstances. So, for instance, when we go and speak to somebody, there's a spectrum of appropriateness that we can hold. Now that appropriateness is dependent upon who we are as a human, because the emotion doesn't matter if the intention is different. If the intention is like, oh yeah, I can hear the emotion in my voice, but I don't give a shit, I wish it'd go away, but it's there. It's a problem, it's not going to stop me living. You can hear me, I've got no attachment to it. I'm speaking appropriate language, and you can hear the language. You can hear that I don't, because this can be heard, I believe. You can hear that I don't have an attachment to this emotion that's coming through in my voice. And as long as those things are present, communication can persist. But that's where that spectrum has to broaden. When I first started doing this, it was like I was working on this sort of spectrum. Like, if my voice isn't like within that range of what I know, I don't feel comfortable, and that appropriateness is lost. But as I've grown as a person, as I've come out my shell, so to speak, as I've felt more and more comfortable in discussing, mostly over the last year, thanks to the videos, I realised what matters and what doesn't matter, and that spectrum that was tiny has grown. And where it's grown, I've realised how to just keep appropriate language and communication, to like almost like the spectrum doesn't matter anymore. It's like that's the sort of perspective I am. But as I said, I'm not really in touch with my true emotions, so who knows what work I have to do when that hits. Yeah, it was just to raise that point of view from somebody who has a mental health disorder openly, you liars, to express openly to whoever wants to listen, the 1 or 2 people at the moment, maybe more in the future, of what it's like to perceive life through your mental health, and all the contradictions. And there with the filter of spirituality explaining the unexplainable. And I put that forward to share, to heal myself, to get myself back on track for today, and to multitask because it makes life easier. I've been forced for the past 2 days to stand here like this, focusing solely on the therapy by my mental health and where I am at the moment. It's been really hard. So you've allowed me to just make it a little bit easier by listening along. I'll leave you alone now to enjoy the rest of the solstice day. I want to finish on something. It feels like there's something that needs to be shared, and that is really strange times at present with the coronavirus. I'm looking at the coronavirus and I'm looking at it from both perspectives, and I can't decide between them. So on one hand, I've got insane conspiracies going in the direction of not beneficial for humanity, and then I've got conspiracies going in the other direction that is like a mass healing in a really weird way for humanity. And I really can't draw the line between them. It's like they're so polarized, they're so opposite, they're so real on both sides that it would be foolish to say, oh, it's this way or that way. But what I know is we're coming out of the dark times in terms of the turn of the Yugas, Kali Yuga and all of that, the Indians' perception of time, and also I think that's also what's applicable in terms of the Mayan perception of time, and also in reference to that Mayan workshop that I attended where they disclosed that, you know, forget 2012, the police, the secret services had turned up and wanted to join the party, so we just delayed it about 10 years, and well, now's the time. He said 2020 or 2021, and we're halfway through the year. So coronavirus, the next 6 months, biblical floods, they're all on the cards. Like, and it's like pressured, like more than ever. But it's strange. I just realised it's like, as I said, my mental health wants to hide the emotions. I wonder if that's applicable to the negative conspiracy and the spiritual enlightenment on the other side, how they're polarized against each other, and both could be absolutely true. And it could be that whether the reptilian control order are aware of it or not, and are playing a game, so to speak, for all of us, or they're genuine and they're maliciousness, and everything in this world really points to that. It has to be taken seriously, and it's more like a tipping point. I believe love and consciousness are governing events of the earth, and also darkness are governing events on earth. Love will win. It's just that I hate my life is a part of that decision making process. That's the problem. And I'll tell you a story another time about how I've come to be a factor in that process within my own life, even if it's within my own psychosis. But yeah, I can't wait for it to be over. Not because I want love, just because I want a 5 minutes rest to catch my breath. We need to keep focused, no?